Hey folks, Sean here, and in this episode, I want to talk to you about how to turn the problem that is paying customers wanting to cancel access to your product into a significant opportunity. Now, what I mean by this is if you're receiving feedback occasionally over time through your various support channels from your paying customers to the extent of them wanting to cancel or stop paying for access to your product or any type of emotionally charged, specifically from a negative perspective, feedback about your product, this speaks to usually a great opportunity to figure out how to make your product better. Now, for my products, the ones that I've built this year, I am primarily leveraging email for support and feedback, in addition to an analytics tool that I've built into my product, which is called Hotjar. Hotjar gives me the ability to capture survey data and for users to report various different types of feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. Now, the opportunity comes from when they are sharing that feedback and it's charged up. And for a moment, I want to talk a bit about the emotional elements and how motivating they can be. So, especially for us folks that have more of a technical background, I studied engineering, I used to write code, and that was very much of that mindset. Thought that all decisions were going to be made from a logical perspective. Realistically, in the real world, nothing could be further from the truth. For the most part, everyone makes decisions for emotional reasons. Maybe angry, happy, sad, whatever it is. They're motivated by their emotions, and a lot of their emotions drive their decision making. Now, what I'm talking about here is the opportunity for you to tap into that to figure out if there's an opportunity to make your product better. Now, I have stories for days about this in terms of customers who are paying for my product and then providing some type of feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. And the negative ones are hilarious. I'll get some interesting language and it'll be particularly charged up, but there's ultimately a reason behind it. Now, the feedback that you might get can fall into one of two categories. Either it's rational feedback and sometimes it's irrational feedback. So I'm not talking about the feedback that is irrational. If it's your product is supposed to be magic. It isn't magic. I want my money back, whatever. Nothing you can really do about that. And that's going to be a portion of the requests you get. But the other ones, those speak largely to opportunities, and I want you to capitalize on them. So, like I've gotten one recently through my support channel. I chased it down myself, and it turned into a really interesting, basically, feature request. The product that I have that manages your podcasts for you, it does so in an automated way, right? It uses AI to do that stuff. But the feedback that I got was, I want to cancel my account because I thought your product was going to be automated. And I'm like, wait a minute, product is automated. What do you mean the product's not automated? It turned out this user had another idea in terms of how we could push the automation another step further, something I hadn't even thought about. And it turned into this really interesting conversation where we're going back and forth, and I'm getting clarity around the use case. Now, my technical team is workshopping a potential solution there. If we implement it, it could be a competitive advantage over my competition. I don't know if they've thought about that either. So what I'm getting at is I would have never thought about this as an idea if I hadn't monitored my support channel and paid particularly close attention to those that wanted to cancel from time to time. And that's really where this one came from. So here's what I want you to do. If you've got people using for and paying for your product, eventually people are going to come at you wanting to cancel for one reason or another. Disregard the ones that come back as irrational, but here's how you can tell. Find out why they want to cancel, right? At the moment, they are emotionally charged up and they're motivated to share this feedback with you. Good, bad, and otherwise. Usually bad and otherwise. Ask them why they want to cancel. Sometimes they share those details, sometimes they don't. Maybe you will cancel for them, obviously, if they still want to do it. And, occasionally they may ask for refunds or whatever, but really the value here is getting at the why, right? Why are you so charged up? What expectations were missed? What did you think would be here that isn't? Figure that out. Like, try to figure that out whenever you can for somebody that wants to cancel before you lose them, as in before you lose access to that information, not necessarily them as a customer. That I'm a little bit less concerned about because ultimately you still may need to figure out what it was, and you may decide whether or not to build, what type of feedback they have. So I'm not necessarily particularly concerned about this individual customer. I'm worried about losing access to vital information from someone who's been testing, using, and paying for your product that has feedback about it and has not had expectations missed. It can influence anything. It can influence everything from what you say about your product on your landing pages and website, all the way to and through what your product ultimately does. And this is a great area of opportunity to make your product better. I find some of my best ideas that I typically wouldn't have thought about when I get this kind of feedback, and I want you to do it too. So leverage your support channels for this feedback. Ask the question why back to them when they want to cancel. Ultimately decide what you'd like to do from there. But as you start to develop these patterns or come up with these ideas, you can workshop back and forth with these users or customers to figure out, is there an opportunity to genuinely make my product better here? I find a ton of great ideas from this particular channel, and I want you to be able to do the same.